Welcome to Godly Play on this Sunday. I'm so glad that we can come together in this way. My name is Di, I'm your storyteller, and Chris is here to help you cross the threshold to come into this space and hear this story. And the first thing that we do is we greet one another. God be with you.
And also with you.
And then we look over to see what time it is in the church. And we are still in the green and growing time. We're moving through the church year, and the next time that the color will change will be the first Sunday in Advent. And so it's now time to get ready for the story. And today I'll remind you of the 3-breath prayer that helps us get ready. The storyteller and the listeners. We have so many different names for God. And with the 3-breath prayer, I open this up and we take a deep breath. And I'll do that 3 times as we think of those names: Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer. Amen. And the next time we come together in this room, I will invite one of you to lead that prayer for us. And so today, our story takes place in the desert box. So many important things happen to the people of God in the desert that we need just a small piece of the desert right here to help us remember those stories. The desert is a strange and wonderful place, but the desert can be dangerous. During the day, the sun beats down on the desert sand and it's burning hot. And at night, when the sun goes down, it can be freezing cold. When the wind blows in the desert, it picks up the sand and it moves the sand, changing the shape of the desert. And so it's easy to get lost. People can die in the desert. It's hard to find food. It's hard to find water, and we need them to stay alive. The people did not go into the desert unless they had a good reason. Now, the people were living in a land where the rains did not come. And because there was no rain, the crops didn't grow. So they had nothing they could use to make their bread. The people were hungry. And at night, the parents could hear their children crying in their sleep. They were so hungry. They knew they would have to leave this land and go to a place where they would find food. And so their journey began. They knew that it meant they would have to cross the desert. It was a long and difficult journey. But the people kept on going until they were there. They came into the land of Egypt. There, the great Nile River would bring water down into the valleys so the people could grow crops. And the Hebrews found food there, and they found work. And for a long time, life was good. But then a new ruler came to the throne, the Pharaoh. And this Pharaoh trapped the people. This Pharaoh told the Hebrews when they had to get up, when they had to go to bed, when they could eat, where they could live, and gave them the work that they had to do. They were slaves. One of them was a man named Moses. And Moses went to the Pharaoh. And he said, "Let my people go." And the Pharaoh said, "No." And then terrible things began to happen in the land of Egypt. And every time Moses would go to Pharaoh and say, "Let my people go." And every time the Pharaoh would say, "No." And then something even more terrible happened. The firstborn son in every Egyptian family died. But the firstborn son in the families of the Hebrews did not die. They had put the blood of a lamb around the doorposts of their homes, and death did not enter, but passed over them. Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." And the Pharaoh said, "Yes." The people could hardly believe it. They were scared the Pharaoh would change his mind. They hurriedly gathered what little belongings they had. They baked bread for the journey, but they didn't have time to put the yeast or the leaven in the bread so that it would rise and become light and fluffy like the bread that we buy in the store. They baked this bread flat. It's called matzah. And when we taste that bread, the flat bread, we can taste this story. The people hurried out of Egypt. And then they heard a sound like thunder. The Pharaoh had changed his mind, and he had sent his army after the Hebrews. And the sound they heard were the horses pulling the chariots across the desert sand. The people were pushed against the water by the army behind them. And it was there, as they were pushed against the water, that Moses came so close to God, and God came so close to Moses, that he knew how to take the people through the waters to freedom. This person's scared. This person needs someone to go with her. this person is excited. These children come together. They all went through the waters to the other side, and the waters closed behind them, so the army could not reach them. The people were free at last, and they prayed prayers of thanksgiving to God. And it was Miriam, shaking her tambourine, the sister of Moses and a prophet. She was the one that led them in a dance of celebration. By God's mighty hand, they were now free. So I wonder, now that you've heard this story of how the people went from slavery to freedom, I wonder which part of this story you liked the best. I wonder which part of this story you thought was the most important part. I wonder if there is any part of this story that is especially about you. I wonder if there's any part of the story that we would leave out if we could, but still have all the story that we need. So I wonder what your work will be today as you think about this story. I wanted to show you something that we have in this room. And the next time that you come here, maybe you can find this on the shelves under these stories that we tell in the desert. This was put together by a friend of mine, because when we think of the desert, sometimes maybe we only have one idea in our minds. But she went online and she looked in different books to find all the different kinds of images that can come to mind when we think of the desert. There are so many different kinds of deserts or wildernesses. So next time you come to this room, maybe you would like to look inside this book at the different photographs that she gathered together for us. And you could write something or draw something, or use any materials you have at home as you think about this story. And as you go, I would like to share with you a blessing song. I see the love of God in you, the light of Christ comes shining through, and I am blessed to be with you, O holy child of God. Go in peace. Amen.